Over to this story. Namibia's Ministry of Home Affairs, Immigration, Safety and Security announced the removal of 31 countries, including many of its top tourism markets, from the visa-exempt status, citing a lack of reciprocity. However, this decision has sparked concern within the regional tourism sector, which fears that it could deter potential visitors. Is this a great move by the Namibian government? Let's now bring in consultant to the Economic Policy Research Association, Eben de Klerk, who's joining us live now from Namibia. Eben, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us. I want to start off here. Why should South Africa care about a decision being taken by the Namibian government when it comes to visa exemptions, and how does this affect the broader region?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I think South Africa is, I think the tourist industry in South Africa is watching what's happening in Namibia, and it appears that South Africa wants to follow suit on the decision to impose visa restrictions. We have given a lot of pushback on this since the decision was taken, and it will be implemented April next year. And we fear that it might hurt our tourism industry quite badly, and the same might happen to South Africa.
Yeah, and since the announcement was made by the Department of Home Affairs, Immigration, Safety and Security in May, have you noted any shift when it comes to tourist bookings in Namibia?
Look, the implementation is only going to be April next year. The problem is that there's a lot of confusion now. A lot of the tourists, especially European tourists, Germany especially, like to book their holidays a year, 2 years in advance. And so the effect will not be immediately seen. The confusion has already started to come in. Unfortunately, the numbers and the reality will only set in next year.
What's the confusion?
Well, how it's going to work? What will be the process? All of that still needs to be meted out. And as I say, people want to book their holidays now. But there's no facility to actually apply for a visa now. It's only going to be applicable from April next year. So if a person wants to come and visit maybe in June next year, they just don't know what now to do, because by that time a visa will be required.
Yeah, so that system is not in place. Has the Department of Home Affairs spoken about this at all? Why the system is not in place, considering that this new regulation will come into effect on the 1st of April. But as you point out, that people make bookings way in advance. So you don't make a booking for May, literally just a month before.
Well, I would assume that they are working on how it's going to operate. I'm not sure. I can't speak for them. But I do know that we have a deadline of April next year, and in the meantime, we will just have to wait and see how they implement this.
Yeah. What's the next step, do you think, then, for the tourism industry? Because the point that was raised by yourself as well was that the regional tourism industry wasn't consulted on this.
No, there were no consultations, and unfortunately, look, we're trying to still try to persuade government not to implement this. We don't see it as any positive for our country. It causes friction in the tourist industry, which we cannot afford. And we sit with, after Sudan estimated the highest general unemployment rates in the world. It's estimated that 70% of our youth is unemployed. Why do we not want to make things more difficult for ourselves? Tourism contributes 7% of our economy and 8% of all our jobs in Namibia. And then we try to do something which we can argue the reasons behind that. We can argue about, but something that will definitely hamper and put an obstacle in an industry that's really doing well for our country.
Yeah. Was there ever an explanation from the government why they're implementing this particular system in terms of having reciprocal visas with countries and an agreement with a particular country? Why do they want to go that route?
Well, they talk about the financial income, but that's absolutely negligible, relatively negligible. The biggest reason appears to be the reciprocity issue. They feel that so many countries don't reciprocate our visa-free entry, And it's kind of, one get the idea that it's kind of a lesson that we want to teach the world, that we are not second-rated countries in Africa. And, you know, that's the idea, that's my opinion, the idea that one gets, the motive behind this is supposed to be. The problem with that is that you start a geopolitical, you enter the geopolitical arena thinking that we are just all equals, and that's just not the case. If our tourists would stop, the minute percentage of the Namibians that can afford to go to Europe and visit Europe for a holiday, if they would stop going to Europe, Europe will not even notice that, because in Namibia we're only 3 million people. If the Europeans, on the other hand, would stop to come to Namibia, our tourism industry would crash. So just on a logical basis, we're not on the same footing, and we need to make rational decision to get the best out of our economy, and not put more obstacles in the way of growing our industry and economies.
Yeah. Do you know whether there's a push at least for regional tourism to be promoted? Also considering the announcement last year that Botswana and Namibia agrees to abolish passports.
That's a good step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And we fully support that. Anything that makes things easier, smoother, in terms of tourism, of growing our economy, that is the way the direction that we should walk in. But then again, there's so many other things that we do to hamper that. We are stopping our EFT payments between Namibia and South Africa within a month. Again, another step to make trade between Namibia and South Africa more difficult. So one find it difficult to get behind the rationale of all of these things if we talk about a policy direction and what we want in one direction and then do the exact opposite.